Okay, I think you're good to go, Chair Carlton.
Good. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. I will call the meeting to order. If there's any declaration of interest, you can declare at any time. I see by the agenda we have no delegations, so we're into reports. If I could have a mover and a seconder to put that on the floor. Moved by Councillor Hutchison, seconded by Councillor Desai. All in favor? And I turn it over. I think Scott is doing this one.
Yeah, so we'll vote after the
Sorry. Okay.
That's okay.
Okay, well, thanks, Chair Carlton, and good morning to members of the task force. I have to lead off by saying you're stuck dealing with me today because Hiba Hussein has actually taken a job with the City of Toronto. She's now a planner in the City of Toronto, and while I wish this was an April Fool's joke, it's not. She's actually with the City of Toronto. Anyway, I'll try to walk you through this report, and a number of people had input into it, including Kim Wingrove, Randy Schertzer, and Hiba before she left. What we're recommending in this case is that staff proceed with hiring a climate change coordinator, is what we're calling it, ahead of the completion of the Climate Change Action Plan. And we're recommending this for a few reasons. One is because the climate change coordinator is going to be a recommendation of the Climate Change Action Plan. And we just thought if council in the future is considering this action plan and then ultimately considering hiring a staff member to help implement the plan, it would be nice to ensure that future staff member, if council supports the recommendation, has input into the plan and gets to bring their own expertise to the final stages of this plan and help implement it in that regard. We also think this position would be very useful in helping walk the public and our businesses and our agricultural community through the finer details of this plan. In the past, we had Hiba doing a lot of that heavy lifting, and I'm just not confident I could bring the same level of expertise that she could in that regard, or perhaps this future position. And the third would be more so to make sure that we hit the ground running with respect to implementing the plan. As the task force may remember from a meeting or two ago, there are a number of strategies that are going to be recommended through this plan, and they're going to cross departments. They're going to cross the county in terms of working with our member municipalities and different community groups. And we just think that having a coordinator who would act sort of like a project manager for the climate change portfolio would be really useful. With respect to the coordinator position, we really do see this as a corporate resource. There's a number of people in a number of different departments currently that have energy efficiency or climate change as a small piece of what they do. Certainly people in the housing department under Anne-Marie's portfolio, people in the transportation department under Pat's portfolio, and others across the county. But we see this position as being that sort of project manager of the implementation of this project, and also a resource to member municipalities in that regard. In earlier discussions with a number of the municipal CAOs, there was general support for moving forward with work on climate change mitigation adaptation, but there was also a feeling at the municipal level that their plates were full and they didn't have current staff resources to really tackle this. And I must admit, I forget which CAO raised it, but there was one CAO that said, why don't we look at this similar to what we've been doing with the community safety and well-being plan, and have the county take a leadership role here and work not only on behalf of the county, but in concert with our 9 member municipalities, and staff see a lot of merit in this approach in that regard. And see this person, should they be hired, as a resource not only for our county departments, but also for the 9 member municipalities and our community groups and citizens across the county in that regard. In preparing for this, we talked to the consultant to see what others are doing, and they noted there are a number of other municipalities that have either hired a coordinator or similarly titled position, or are in the process of undertaking that right now. So we did some research in terms of to see job descriptions and salary ranges of what other municipalities are doing across Ontario, with a few examples as well from other provinces. And it seems that there was a number of positions out there. The salary range was averaging between 65,000 and 75,000 per year. And the job postings were almost perfectly split in terms of those that were hiring a 1 or 2 year contract position and those that were looking at someone full-time. I will say there was some range in salaries because there were differing levels of responsibilities across different municipalities. Some of them, this person would be a sole incumbent and managing a portfolio, versus others were working as a member of a department, and there were other climate change resources in that corporate organization. So that's part of the reason why there's such a range in the projects in this regard. In this case, what staff are recommending is that we consider hiring a climate change coordinator for a 2-year contract. For the remainder of 2021, that contract would be funded from the Energy Audit Reserve, and then the position would be put in the budget for consideration in 2022. We are recommending a 2-year contract at this stage because it is relatively new to Grey County, and we want to make sure we find our feet in this regard. And then as that 2 years draws to a close, we would reevaluate the position to see whether it's needed to extend the contract, whether we look at terminating the contract, or whether we look at bringing a recommendation forward through a future budget that the position be made a full-time person in that regard. So that's the Coles notes of the report. There was also a link in the report to the draft job description if anybody is interested in seeing the exact duties. But I'd certainly be happy to take any questions, or if any other staff on the call here today have anything further to add, certainly love their input as well.
Thank you, Scott. Excellent report. And I read the whole thing plus the job description. I think it's great. Are there any questions or comments from the rest of committee? Go ahead, Councillor Hicks.
So thank you very much, Madam Chair. I do agree with those people who say that this would be a great position to align, as we did with the well-being process that we recently went through. My question is, will this person be reporting to Randy?
Currently, the way we've set it up is they would be reporting to Randy at this stage, yes.
And what do you mean by currently? Do you anticipate anything other than that, potentially?
Well, if the position got reevaluated in the future, or if there was other corporate changes, then we could never say never. But at this stage, the way we've structured it is that it would be a member of the planning department reporting to Randy, but that it would be a corporate resource. And we do have some precedent for this in that we have Brad Noble, who is our planning data analysis coordinator, who is under the planning department, but really does serve as a corporate data resource in that regard. So we see this as being somewhat similar there.
Right, and I'm gathering the compensation piece will go to the non-union job evaluation committee, or has that already happened?
If I can, I think that we used the research that we had done to try and assess where this job would land in order to be kind of competitive in the marketplace, if you will. Our job evaluation process is under review, and also it's been a little bit impacted by everything that's happening with COVID as far as trying to get all the people around the table and that. So I think for right now, what we're proposing is we put it in at a 10, given that that's pretty consistent with what we're seeing out there. I think if we decided at some point to restructure around this or to make it permanent, at that time, we would revisit it when we were looking at other changes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Warden Hicks, and I apologize for calling you Councillor Hicks before. Are there any other comments from other committee members? Councillor Woodbury, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with this and with the recommendation to do it countywide. I think we've seen through COVID, as well as a bunch of other initiatives, that consistency across the county makes things a lot easier for our people. So yeah, I think full go ahead with this and be countywide. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments from committee? Are there any comments sent from staff members?
No.
Then I will go ahead and call the question. All in favor? I'm going to ask the clerk if you saw everybody's hands.
I did. Yes, that motion is
Thank you.
carried.
Perfect. Okay, that is carried. So on to the next item, which is the electric vehicle charging network. And I see this one's prepared by Hiba as well. So who's running with this one?
I will take a crack at this one, Chair Carlton. Thank you. And
Sorry, Randy, I'll just interrupt to get a mover and a seconder, please.
oh, sorry.
I apologize.
No, that's okay.
Moved by Councillor Woodbury, seconded by Councillor McQueen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Carlton, and good morning, task force members. Yeah, Hiba Hussein and Brian Plumstead have been involved in the discussions regarding this partnership initiative, and Brian is available today to help answer any questions. And we wish Hiba were still here to be able to present this report. So I'll try and take my best stab at trying to tackle this report, and Brian can fill in any gaps that I may have missed with respect to this. So throughout the consultation for the Climate Change Action Plan, staff have heard from both council members, this task force, as well as members of the community that the development of electric vehicle charging stations should be prioritized. We're seeing more people choose electric cars over gas-powered vehicles. We are also seeing auto manufacturers switching their production to more electric vehicles, some even announcing that they'll be phasing out completely gas-burning vehicles from their production. These shifts require the county to be proactive and ensure that there will be an adequate infrastructure within our region. As mentioned, Grey County Planning and Tourism staff have been working with the County of Wellington, as well as neighboring counties and municipalities, to investigate and support establishing an electric vehicle charging station network within the partnership region. This will help to bridge the gap of charging infrastructure between Highway 401, Lake Huron and Georgian Bay, as well as all the way up to Bruce Peninsula. The opportunity to create a network in this region has been identified as a key opportunity for tourism, economic development, as well as accelerating electric vehicle adoption. The partners have expressed interest in doing a collaborative approach for the development of this network. And by pooling staff resources and funding, it will be beneficial for all partners. A number of partners have started to implement various electric vehicle charging locations over the past 5 years. And these facilities have often been installed without necessarily considering distance between those charging stations, as well as not looking at things like connecting along travel routes or supporting economic development by strategically locating these at say, key tourist destinations, such as restaurants or attractions or shopping areas. The feasibility study will review the existing electric vehicle infrastructure and propose a strategy to expand the network. So the study will do some mapping and GIS analysis of the existing charging stations in the partnership study area. It will also model a design of the future regional network. It will also develop site selection criteria with emphasis on tourism and economic development. It will then identify proposed charging locations, and it will also look at opportunities for solar array charging stations. The study will be utilized as a guide for local and counties to, as well as private enterprises even, to plan and install electric vehicle infrastructure in a thoughtful and well-planned manner. It's also an opportunity to engage the community about electric vehicles to support their adoption. So the partners will be applying to FCM's Green Municipal Fund, and this fund provides grants and resources to support projects such as this. The grant covers up to 50% of the eligible costs. So the grant funding would be utilized to hire a consultant to conduct this study. The partners would cover the remaining 50% of the cost to conduct this study. We're estimating the total cost for the study is approximately $70,000. So the network is looking for a financial commitment of $5,000 from each partner, as well as staff time from each respective partner to supplement the consulting costs that's not covered by the funding. A draft MOU has been developed to clarify roles and responsibilities between the partners, as well as provides details regarding the submission of the funding application to FCM. And staff, if the task force and council supports this initiative, we would enter into that service agreement as per the delegation of duties bylaw. The intent would be to apply for the funding this month. The project would commence, we're anticipating in August, with a project being completed in March of 2022. Wellington County will provide the overall project management services for the study, as well as serve as the lead applicant for the funding submission. We are proposing that the county's contribution for the $5,000 partnership would be funded from the Energy Audit Reserve, and there are sufficient funds in this reserve to cover this expense. We should also note that we have been in discussions with the Clean Energy Frontier program, which is linked to the Nuclear Innovation Institute, and they are interested in doing a demand study in our region for electric vehicle use. So we have connected the Wellington County project lead with the Clean Energy Frontier program lead to see if there are further partnership opportunities there. Brian, as I mentioned, is on the line, and I don't know if there's anything that I've missed regarding this report, but our recommendation is that we support this this initiative, that the $5,000 partner contribution be funded from the Energy Audit Reserve. And happy to take any questions. And Brian, I don't know if I've missed anything, but Brian is here also to take any questions.
Thank you, Randy. Brian, did you have anything you would like to add?
No, I think Randy really covered it. It's just I was sort of riding shotgun with Hiba as well, so this is a little out of my league. But I think my takeaway was just that it's a really good group, the regional group with like the city of Guelph, and many partners who have been doing this for years and years have a lot of practical experience. So this is a very complex issue, and I think it's just great having some partners who have had skin in the game for a couple of years. So I think Grey County would be very well served to be part of the network and can learn a lot from the partners. So, and of course, I think from a tourism take, it so much complements, I think, our tourism brand in Grey County for sustainability and for being able to deliver more electric charging network would be just fantastic. So I think it's a win-win.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. Are there any comments or questions from the rest of committee? Go ahead, Warden Hicks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would say that Hiba has probably taken some lessons out of the book of the giants in the movie industry, which is you always bow out having them wanting more. Her name's all over the stuff and she's gone. I think anytime we can collaborate with our neighbors and with others who have similar challenges, the better. And I would dare say it will bode well for our application for funding if we're doing it as a collaborative. My question is around the timeline for the feasibility study. Do we know, well, first of all, we have to get the funding, but do we have any sense of the timeline on that?
Other than the timeline in terms of where we want to submit the application to FCM this month, in the month of April, we hope to hear announcement, hopefully probably later spring, I'm anticipating, and Brian may know more further about this. So with that, we're anticipating starting in the summer, the project, and then hopefully completing by March 2022 is the anticipated timelines at this stage.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Warden McQueen.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I'm on my phone. I haven't quite figured out the new computer yet to get it just working, so I'm on my phone here.
Two of us.
Yeah, okay. Great report. Really important, as we know from the two of the larger North American manufacturers are talking about electric vehicles rollout for 2030, 2035. So, there's going to be a big transition over the next 10 years. So certainly charging stations are going to be the infrastructure, like gas stations are going to be very important for gas, same as charging. I think something that I know we talked about a year ago before pre-COVID was we had the new food land that was coming into Markdale about are those type of places where you could put charging stations. So they're big parking lots. I think in Owen Sound, there's one at the Walmart. I think there's quite a few charging stations there. So it's sort of a win-win in the sense that they're in communities where people might stop for groceries and stop, and then it forces people to charge a vehicle, maybe go for a walk, check the downtown of your urban areas and spend money. And, so I think that's also a win-win in the sense, and I don't know about Tim Hortons and those type of places that are looking at charging stations, but I look at it just as an opportunity to introduce people into our small communities on a tourism thing. So I think it's a great thing. And our major corridors of the provincial highways, 26, Highway 10, Highway 6 are major corridors that do bring people in through our area and stuff like that. So look forward to the study, and certainly I think from an application point and from my representation on AMOL and certainly others that we need to be, once we get that information out, to be proactive in sense of trying to apply for funding and whatever's out there, because obviously there's going to be a huge uptake on these type of infrastructure units going out throughout our community. So again, thanks for the report, and looking forward to seeing some of the results and moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And any other comments or responses? Warden Hicks.
So I would echo the comments of Deputy Warden McQueen. I can't tell you how many people I've encountered in Hanover. We set up a charging station there. This was years ago. I can't even count how many years ago. It was Savannah that directed us, along that line. This was quite a few years ago. But people tell me that they actually plan to go through Hanover for two things. Number one, we have a charging station, but number two, right where the charging station is, we also have free Wi-Fi, and it's quite good in partnership with Whiteman Telecom. So they can, plan that, this is my route. I'm going to take lunch in Hanover. I'm going to charge my vehicle. I'm going to check out my internet, stop my car, and, take care of a little bit of business, maybe go to a restaurant, that sort of thing. It has been hugely successful for Hanover. So I think Councillor McQueen is really onto something there.
Excellent, thank you. And I would agree. I know there's a couple of charging stations in Owen Sound right down behind Scotiabank, and that would give access to the free Wi-Fi there as well. One question I have for staff would be, if for some reason we were not to get this funding, is there any inclination on the full partners to look at doubling the input and go to 10,000 from each municipality to ensure this gets going?
A great question. I don't know if there has been any backup plan discussions, Brian, amongst the partnership if we're not successful with the FCM grant. But I think, just based on the collaboration and the potential partnership, I think we'd want to explore those options with the partnership to see, okay, if we didn't get the FCM funding, then what? I don't think we'd want to just completely park this idea if we didn't get the funding. I think we'd want to explore those options and then bring maybe a supplement report back to this task force with some further direction. But I don't know, Brian, if there has been any backup discussions.
There hasn't really. I think the hope is really to secure it, but I know the group is very committed. So I think if that weren't to happen, absolutely, as you said, Randy, I think we'd be looking at other funding options. And the Nuclear Innovation Institute sort of just come to the table within the last couple of weeks. So it just seems like perfect timing. So that they've got money. So certainly that might be another avenue too.
Excellent, thank you. Any other comments? Warden Hicks, go ahead.
I have to tell you, Madam Chair, I'm quite optimistic about our chances at the FCM table. We've got some people who are well positioned there, strong voices, and the fact that we are collaborative making this application.
Thank you. Yes, I thought the same thing too. There's always that little if, are we the last one to get in and there's no money left type thing. So just a question I thought I would raise. Councillor Woodbury, go ahead.
I think as well, the bottom line with this is even if we paid double, that's pretty cheap to get a good study and get things going. So to me, the money part really is compared to a lot of budgets and a lot of things, this is a small amount for the benefit that it'll be.
Exactly. Thank you. If there are no further comments, just ask the clerk, do you need me to read the recommendation? I know I didn't on the last one. Should I be reading that?
No, you don't need to read that, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So I will call the question then. All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And next I see we have an update on next steps for the climate change action plan, and that's verbal. Who is delivering this one?
This would be me again, Chair Carlton. So yeah, just very briefly, initially we had thought we might have a draft climate change action plan to share with the task force today. We've slowed that down just a little bit. We do have a draft, staff have received a draft from the consultant. We're just reviewing that internally now and providing our feedback back to the consultant. Our plan, what we propose with the committee's blessing, or with the task force blessing, sorry, is that staff would continue to review that and give the feedback back to the consultant. They would prepare a revised draft, and then we would actually not bring that back immediately to this task force. Rather, we would send it out to municipal CAOs first and to get their feedback on it. And to see if it makes sense from both the county and municipal perspectives. And you know, Kim has brought it up with the CIOs, and I think the phrase she keeps using is, you know, is this something you can see yourself in and see your municipality in it, and would it work for you? So we thought getting that feedback might be valuable as a next step after our own internal staff feedback. And then at that point, after that municipal feedback, we would bring it back to the task force here for the task force input. Following that input, we would go out to our public consultation phase. And if we're successful in hiring a coordinator, this might line up quite nicely that they could come on board around the time that public consultation is started and play a big part of that. And then following that consultation with the public and various groups and everything else, we would have the consultant prepare a revised final draft that would ultimately come back to this task force and council in that regard. So the timelines have been pushed back a little bit, but we think there's still value in moving forward in this manner and making sure that we definitely get that municipal buy-in, the task force buy-in, then ultimately the public input before finalizing the plan. So in terms of timing, that might take us into kind of fall or later 2021 before the entire plan is finalized, depending on the feedback we get. But this is the sort of process that staff have mapped out, subject, of course, to any feedback we hear from the task force today.
Thank you. Are there any questions from anyone else or comments? Okay, seeing nothing else, is there any other business?
I have something, if I may.
Go ahead. Thank you.
I was contacted by Dr. John Anderson from the Climate Action Team, Grey Bruce. Some of you, I think, are familiar with this group. They're quite active, and there are various parts of them. They have been organizing monthly gatherings since the beginning of this year. So Lee Gregg, I think, from Georgian Bluffs, is part of it as also as a board member of the Grey Bruce Sustainability Network, and Joaquim Ostertag from the Owen Sound Group have been doing the coordination around bringing these gatherings forward. They provide a forum for people to talk about climate-related concerns and possible initiatives that might come forward from a grassroots level. They've asked that on April 15th at that evening meeting, John Anderson will be hosting presentations and discussions which they hope will lead to some critical insights for the group around climate action from a regional or political perspective. So they asked me to come and speak to the work that the county has underway. And so I didn't really think I could say no. So I said yes. But what I will do is make sure that those key speaking points, which will be absolutely aligned with everything that we've talked about so far this morning, but I'll make sure that that gets circulated to all of you. I'm interested in your perspective as members of this committee, but I think there's a long history here of the public being very engaged in environmental and climate related matters. I think, Randy, you saw it a lot when we did the official plan review. The Owen Sound field naturalists, the Bruce Trail people, the sustainability people, they've all been, I think, really interested and anxious and willing to do more. And it's my hope that coming out of this, we can help them help us to do more of this, like all of the initiatives that we're going to undertake as part of this climate action plan. I hope that the feeling is that we're doing them with people and for people rather than to them, because it's going to mean change to people's habits and behaviors and potentially how you spend your money and all of that sort of thing. So the more everybody's kind of, seeing the same vision and working together, I think the easier that kind of change will be to take root. But I did want to let the committee know that I'd been asked to do this, and that I said yes, but I'm certainly open to any other volunteers, or if anybody has any comments or anything or important points that you feel. Once I'll circulate, as I say, the notes for the meeting. But if when I do that, if any of you have things that you feel I've missed or you want to tweak the language or anything like that, absolutely. I certainly don't want to be seen as speaking on behalf of you, our elected officials. So I just wanted to let you know we have a couple of weeks yet.
Thank you, Kim. Is this going to be a public meeting that there as a Zoom link that we can all participate in?
Oh, it is a Zoom meeting, and I believe that those meetings are always, I see them advertised, so I assume that anybody who wished to could participate in them, but I'll include the link with the notes.
Okay, thank you. I know Dr. Anderson is one of the 5 public members that Georgian Bluffs has
Oh,
on
okay.
Climate Action Committee, and he's fantastic.
Yeah.
The depth of knowledge he has is just amazing. So,
right.
And fantastic that he's willing to put his time out for all of this. So yeah, he's well worth listening to. Are there any other comments or questions from anyone? Councillor Desai, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair Carlton. Also, thank you, Madam CEO, for taking on this heavy burden of going into public spheres. It's not always a welcome one, but
I'll bring my shield. Yeah.
A sword might also be useful. I don't know how that works on Zoom, but and also, I just want to reiterate Dr. Anderson's really a well-spoken person. He was part of that documentary a few years ago now, and a beautiful documentary. I can't remember the name off the top of my head.
Resilience.
Resilience. Yes. The question I had though was with regards to the lower tier climate action committees. Chair Carlton, you mentioned that Georgian Bluffs has one. We have one at Grey Highlands as well. Are we looking at having a meeting with all of these lower tier climate action task forces, as well as the county climate action task force, to see if there's any overlaps where, you know, we're duplicating what we're doing, and if there's anywhere that we can work together to achieve the goal of addressing climate change issues. Thank you.
I think that's a really important role for the coordinator position, and why it's so important to have someone who's dedicated to that role, because they'll have all the time in the world to be able to go and have those meetings and collect the feedback and bring it back in. I'm really hoping that we'll have a much stronger product at the end by spending the time now to make sure that we're getting it right and that we're bringing along everybody with us.
I would just add to that, it's my understanding that at CAO's meetings for the county, that this has been brought up and discussed. I know our new CAO has been saying that he's looking for assistance at that level, that we don't have the staffing resources for it ourselves. And our chair of our township committee has been in, I think, talking to West Grey and Grey Highlands committees as well. So there is definitely interaction. I think there needs to be more.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you, Councillor Desai, for bringing that up. It's a very valid point. Any other comments? Then we are at the end of our agenda. The next meeting date is to be determined. So thank you, everyone, and hope everyone has a great Easter weekend.
So I just need a
motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Councillor Woodbury, seconded by Councillor McQueen. All in favor?
Okay.
Thank you. Carried.
All right. Thanks everyone.
Okay. Thank
Take
you.
care.
Take care.
Bye.
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 Hey.